Imagine for a second, oi. Not just imagine. Feel. Everything has been taken from you. Your name is erased, replaced by a branded number on your skin. Your clothes are dirty rags. Your family is either ash or shadows wandering nearby. Your freedom is a memory, almost a dream. Your body is emaciated by hunger, cold, and beatings. Your future is measured in hours, days, and the most likely outcome is smoke from the crematorium chimney on the horizon. This is not a horror movie. This is the reality of Nazi concentration camps. Auschwitz, Zan Dachau. Hell, on earth. What remains for a person when outwardly there is absolutely nothing left? What force can keep the soul from disintegrating under such conditions? Most people in such conditions broke down, lost the will to live, and faded away physically and spiritually. This seems like the only possible reaction. But there was a man who not only went through this hell. He was psychiatrist Viktor Frankl, and he used this nightmare as a laboratory of the human spirit. He not only survived where survival was nearly impossible, he found an answer there, an answer to the eternal question of the meaning of life. And this discovery became his main, almost unthinkable secret of resilience, a secret that saved his mind and body, and formed the foundation of an entire psychological doctrine: logotherapy. Therapy through meaning. Today, we will not just recount the horrors of history. We will delve into the mind of a man who stared into the abyss and found light there. We will unveil this shocking secret of resilience, remarkable in its simplicity and depth. You will learn not only an incredible story of overcoming, but also understand how the fundamental principles of spiritual survival, discovered in the hell of concentration camps, can become your compass. A compass for finding strength, meaning, and support in your life, during times of difficulties, losses, or even the ordinary routine that seems empty. This knowledge can change your perspective on yourself and the world. Stay with me. This will be profound. To understand the depth of the fall, one must see the height from which it began. Vienna, the 1930s. The city of waltzes, intellectual cafes, the birthplace of psychoanalysis. And in this boiling pot of ideas, a young brilliant neurologist and psychiatrist, Viktor Emil Frankl. He had already worked with Freud, argued with Adler, and was following his own path. He was interested not only in the dark side of the psyche, not only in the past, but also in what pulls a person upward, into the future, their striving for meaning. He was in charge of a pavilion for suicide prevention, saving thousands of lives even before his own life was threatened. He was already developing the foundations of what he would later call logotherapy, the idea that the search for meaning is the primary motivational force in a person. He was married to his beloved woman, Tilly Grosser. He was publishing, had an extensive practice, and was making ambitious plans. The world seemed to be at his feet. But the idyll came to an end. March 1938. Anschluss. Austria became part of Nazi Germany. For the Jews of Vienna, this meant the beginning of the end. Humiliation, restrictions, loss of jobs, property. The atmosphere of fear and hatred thickened with each passing day. Frankl, like many others, faced a choice. He had an American visa, a chance for salvation, to continue his work in safety. He almost decided, but something stopped him. Legend has it that while contemplating leaving, he found a piece of marble at home. It was a fragment of one of the 10 Commandments, from a synagogue destroyed by the Nazis. The commandment read, "Honor your father and your mother." His elderly parents could not leave, and he stayed. It was not just a son's duty. It was the first, tragic but conscious act of choosing meaning in loyalty, in love, in responsibility. In the face of impending catastrophe, he chose to stay with his loved ones, even though the instinct for self-preservation screamed otherwise. September 1942. The inevitable happened. Viktor, His wife Tilly and his parents were deported. First the Theresienstadt ghetto camp, then Auschwitz-Birkenau. The most terrifying place on the planet. A death factory, a place where selection occurred upon arrival. An SS doctor, with a lazy flick of the finger, decided your fate. To the left, straight to the gas chamber. To the right, to forced labor, which was merely a postponement of the same death. Frankl was sent to the right, his parents and brother to the left. His wife Tilly was sent to another camp, Bergen-Belsen. He lost them almost immediately, although he only learned of their final fate after the war. Imagine this process. It's not just a deprivation of freedom, it's a methodical erasure of identity. Your clothes are torn off, your hair is shaved, your name is replaced with the number 119,104. You are no longer Dr. Frankl, not a husband, not a son. You are number one in a herd, destined for slaughter. All your past achievements, knowledge and connections are nullified. What happens to the psyche at this moment? How do you not go insane? Frankl would later describe 3 phases of a prisoner's psychological reaction. The first is shock, denial of what is happening, hope for a mistake. The second is apathy, deep emotional numbness, the death of feelings as a protective armor against daily horror, pain, and humiliation. This is a dangerous state. The line between apathy and a complete loss of will to live is very thin. And the third phase, for those who survived, is the phase after liberation: bitterness, disappointment, difficulties in returning to normal life. But it was precisely by being in the second phase, the state of apathy surrounding him, and fighting it within himself, that Frankl the psychiatrist did not die. He began to observe, observing himself and others, with the cold clarity of a scientist. What did Frankl see? He saw inhuman conditions, hunger turning people into shadows, cold penetrating to the bone, constant fear of beatings, torture, death. The arbitrariness of the capos and SS guards, senseless, exhausting labor, diseases, typhus, dysentery. Death became commonplace. But it was precisely at this extreme point that he began to ask himself the main question, which might have seemed blasphemous or insane in Auschwitz. Why did some physically strong individuals give up almost immediately, lose all will, lie down and die as if by their own choice, while others, fragile, emaciated, continued to live, clinging to every breath, preserving a spark of humanity? What was it? Chance? Physiology? Or something else? He saw it constantly. He saw how a prisoner, who lived with a single hope that the war would end by Christmas, died literally on the 29th or 30th of December. Not from illness, not from hunger. His body simply refused to live when his hope, his meaning collapsed. Frankl called it death from loss of hope. Immunity would drop instantly. A person became defenseless. But he also saw something completely different. He saw incredible acts of altruism and self-sacrifice, where it seemed only the law of the jungle should prevail. He saw people giving their last piece of bread to a dying comrade. He saw doctors who, risking their lives, secretly treated the sick beyond the prescribed minimum. He saw those who found the strength to comfort others, share memories of normal life, and keep the spark of hope alive. He saw people who maintained a sense of humor, dark, gallows humor. But it helped create distance, preventing the horror from consuming them entirely. He saw how people found solace in the beauty of nature, in the sunset, in a tree beyond the barbed wire. How intense their inner spiritual life became, with memories, dreams, intellectual constructs, and prayers. This was their last bastion. And Frankl, being one of them himself, experiencing the same hunger, cold, and fear, realized external conditions, no matter how terrible, did not completely define a person. Yes, they influenced, pressured, and broke. But between the stimulus, the god's blow, hunger, the death of a comrade, and the reaction, despair, apathy, hatred, there remained a gap, a tiny gap, in which lay the lost human freedom. The freedom to choose one's attitude towards what was happening. The freedom to decide what kind of person you will be even in these inhuman conditions. Will you succumb to the degradation that the camp pushes you towards, or will you maintain your human dignity? It is important to remember that Frankl drew these conclusions not from a cozy office. He himself went through all the circles of hell. He lost his father, mother, brother, and wife. He himself suffered from typhus, and miraculously survived. He experienced the same despair, the same temptations to give up. His theory was born not from books, but from fire and blood. And it is precisely this that gives it such incredible power and authenticity. He is not just a psychologist, he is a surviving witness who looked into the abyss and returned to tell us what he saw there. So, Frankl concluded that what distinguished those who survived in spirit from those who were broken was not the absence of suffering, but the presence of meaning. Even in a concentration camp, life could have meaning. And it was precisely this meaning that gave the strength to live, to fight, to preserve oneself. This became the core of his logotherapy. It stands on 3 pillars. The first principle is the freedom of will. Even in the harshest conditions, a person retains the freedom to choose their position, their attitude. We are not puppets of circumstances or our instincts. The second principle is the will to meaning. The main driving force of a person is not the pursuit of pleasure or power, but the pursuit to find and realize the meaning of their life. The third principle is the meaning of life. Life always has meaning, under any circumstances. This meaning is unique to each person and each situation, and it needs to be found. But how could one find meaning there, in Auschwitz? Frankl, by observing and analyzing his own experience, and that of others, identified 3 main ways of finding meaning, even available in the camp. The first way is through what we give to the world, through the work of creation, serving a cause. It might seem, what meaning is there in slave labor for the Nazis? But even here, a loophole could be found. For example, Frankl, being a doctor, tried to secretly help sick prisoners, alleviate their suffering, and prevent suicides. This was his professional and human duty, his meaning. Another prisoner could find meaning in doing their work as well as possible, even under coercion, maintaining professional dignity. Frankl himself mentally reconstructed his lost book manuscript from memory. This intellectual work, aimed at the future, gave him immense strength. That is, even in the most limited conditions, one could find something to do that would have meaning at least for oneself, or for someone nearby. The second path is through what we take from the world, through experiencing values such as beauty, art, nature, and, most importantly, through love. This was one of the most powerful sources of meaning for Frankl personally. He describes how during an exhausting march in the dark and cold, almost losing consciousness from fatigue and pain, he began to think about his wife Tilly. He imagined her face, her smile, and had mental dialogues with her. And at that moment, he was overwhelmed by a feeling he described as ecstasy. He realized that love is the ultimate and highest goal to which a person can aspire. Love for a specific person, even if they are far away or no longer alive, can fill life with meaning and give the strength to endure. The image of a loved one became an inner light that no external horrors could extinguish. This also includes the ability to see beauty in the sunset over the barracks, in the sounds of a comrade's violin, in a kind word. And the third way, the most difficult, but perhaps the most important in extreme conditions, is through the stance we take towards inevitable suffering. If you cannot change the situation that causes you pain, and in the camp, almost nothing could be changed, you can still choose how you will relate to it. You can face suffering courageously, with dignity, not allowing it to destroy your inner essence. This is what Frankl called the realization of the values of attitude. This is not masochism, not a call to seek suffering. It is the recognition that even in suffering, one can find meaning. The meaning is to remain human, not to betray your principles, to grow spiritually through trials. Frankl saw examples of this. People who went to the gas chamber with a prayer on their lips, not cursing their tormentors. People who, in the face of death, maintained inner calm and dignity. To give suffering meaning is to turn a personal tragedy into an inner victory. And what united all these paths? The presence of a goal in the future. Frankl noted the critical importance of having a future orientation. A person who had something or someone to live for had a much better chance of pulling through. This could be a dream of meeting loved ones, completing some task, or telling the world the truth, as in Frankl's own case. This goal, this meaning awaiting you in the future, acted as a lifeline in the present. It allowed one to endure the unbearable how, because the why was understood. Nietzsche said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." Frankl proved this with his life. And here it is. We have arrived at it. The main secret of Viktor Frankl's resilience. A secret, forged in hell. It is not some complex formula or secret knowledge accessible only to the chosen few. It is not luck, or superpowers. It is a conscious choice. The choice to seek and find meaning, no matter what. Meaning, in what you can create or do in this world. Meaning in whom, or what you can love. Meaning in how you face inevitable suffering. And the guiding star in all of this is the goal that awaits you ahead, the responsibility you bear towards life. Why did I call it shocking at the beginning? Because it contradicts everything we are used to thinking about a person in extreme conditions. We tend to think that such suffering must inevitably dehumanize, turn one into an animal, break one irreversibly. Determinism, external conditions, determine everything. And Frankl, with his experience and theory, challenged this. He showed that even at the very bottom, even when everything external has been taken from you, you still have an inner space of choice. The choice to remain human. The choice to find your own unique meaning in suffering and life. And it is precisely this choice, this will to meaning, that often turned out to be the decisive factor in survival. Not muscles, not fat reserves, but the strength of spirit, nourished by meaning. This is the last inviolable citadel of the human personality, which neither gas chambers nor barbed wire could destroy. That is truly shocking. The shock of the strength of the human spirit. The camps were liberated in 1945. Viktor Frankl returned to Vienna. He was alone, his entire family had perished. But he carried within him knowledge paid for at an unimaginable price. His book, Man's Search for Meaning, A Psychologist in a Concentration Camp, later known as Man's Search for Meaning, became a worldwide bestseller, translated into dozens of languages. His logotherapy became a recognized school of psychotherapy, helping millions of people around the world cope with the existential vacuum and the feeling of life's meaninglessness. But the main question for us today is, how can these lessons, born in the hell of the 20th century, help us, living in the 21st century, with all our problems, stresses, and crises? Of course, our difficulties are not comparable to the horrors of the Holocaust. But the mechanisms of the human psyche are universal. We also face losses, illnesses, failures, and routines that seem empty. We seek meaning in our work, relationships, and in overcoming difficulties. Frankl's ideas are not just a historical artifact. They are a powerful tool for living here and now. Remember your freedom. Even when it seems like you are cornered by circumstances, you always have the freedom to choose how to react, what attitude to take. Do not let the situation define you entirely. Ask yourself, what choice can I make right now to express my values? Actively seek your meaning. Meaning does not come by itself. It needs to be sought and created. Ask yourself, what can I give to the world, even if it's small? What or whom do I love? What can I learn through these difficulties? Do not wait for a global revelation. Look for meaning in each day, in specific actions and relationships. Do not fear suffering. It is a part of life. The question is not how to avoid it, but how to face it. Can they become a source of growth? Can you find meaning in them by helping others or changing your attitude? Live with a future orientation. Have goals, dreams, projects. Let them be your beacon. Knowing what you live for will help you endure anyhow. Here it is, Frankl's main secret, revealed in all its depth. This is not passive acceptance of fate, but an active, responsible stance towards life. Life constantly asks us questions, and our task is to answer them with our actions, our choices, our love, our courage. As Frankl himself said, paraphrasing a well-known saying, ultimately, living does not mean asking what the meaning of life is, but rather constantly answering the questions that life poses to us. And the most important question: what will you do with the one priceless gift you have? Your life? This topic is deep and inexhaustible. What do you think? What gives meaning to your life? Which lessons from Viktor Frankl seem the most important to you? Share your thoughts, stories, and questions in the comments below. Let's create a community here of seekers who support each other. If you want to delve deeper, I highly recommend reading Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. It's a book that can change your life. And of course, if you're interested in such deep dives into psychology, stories of incredible resilience, and self-development strategies, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Click like if this video was helpful or touched you, and hit the bell to be the first to know about new releases. We have a lot more interesting content coming up. Thank you for being with me in this challenging but important conversation. Remember Frankl's words: between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space lies our power and our freedom. Use this freedom wisely. Seek your light. See you next time.